I would say that it was in that moment that I was very scared for my life. There was a time period between the ambulance arriving, and I just had the worst, just regret. Like, I have made the worst decision. My kids are going to need me. And at that point too, I also realized that having mental illness is not the biggest burden on people.
Yeah.
Putting on life is the biggest.
What do you feel like where do you feel like your turning point was? Was it that, did you have multiple turning points? Because as I listened to you, it looks like there are times when you make you had kind of decision points, but what do you feel like was your turning point?
Yes.
What do you feel like got you to the point where you realized, like, I have to accept responsibility for this, and this is, I want to live and I need to accept responsibility?
I would say that it was in that moment that I was very scared for my life. There was a time period between the ambulance arriving, and I just had the worst, just regret. Like, I have made the worst decision. My kids are going to need me. And at that point too, I also realized that having mental illness is not the biggest burden on people.
Yeah.
Putting on life is the biggest. And I saw how many people were thankful that I made it through, and the pain in their eyes of what I had put them through. And I would say that was definitely the turning point. I had smaller turning points throughout the journey, but that was definitely the biggest. I have made the worst decision of my life. And I don't know if the medical community is going to be able to undo that.
One of the things that you said, and I experienced this myself, is there's a lot of shame around those kinds of thoughts. Having, suicidal ideation, yes. There's a lot of shame. And so we hide it, which is like allowing somebody in your home that is trying to kill you and not doing anything about it, letting them stay. Because if you allow those thoughts to stay, your defenses break down, and your ability to fight those feelings breaks down. And if you don't say something to somebody, I mean, was that your experience as well? Because I think that was, for me, that was what got me to the point where I finally made attempts, was not saying anything to anybody. And getting to the point where I started to believe the lies in my head. I started to believe that everybody would be better off without me, and that there was no other, no other way forward, that there was no other hope, And so I had to commit, when I made the decision I was never going to do that again, I had to commit to asking for help anytime those thoughts came. I had to commit to a plan that I would do something about those thoughts rather than let them stay. What was your experience with that?
Very similar. Yeah, it's hard to tell people. And I guess that's where it comes down to your tribe. Like, who are your people that you can call and say the most frightening thing ever? And they'll be there in an instant. My parents are 20 minutes away, and they will get here if I need them, And even just having the people, I have some friends too who have been through different struggles, but those are the people that I know I can go deep and hard conversations with them.
And there needs to be a plan. Out. Like, you can't, trying to fight that stuff on your own is not a plan. It's not something that will be successful, because when your brain is your own enemy, you can't trust. A lot of times we can't trust our minds when we get into those mental states, when you're severely depressed or manic. And so it's really critical that you come up with a plan, so that you have somebody you can trust that will help you to stay in a rational space when you are not rational. Right.
Absolutely. And you and I have talked about this as well, but being a single parent, I don't have another adult in the house that, there have been times before in the past where I've been in a relationship, and those people can point out, kind of the earlier signs. So I've had to become hyper vigilant, I guess, and monitoring my own symptoms to try to catch them before they do get hard. But I've made the promise, there's a good chance, that in this lifetime I will end up in the hospital again. My last hospitalization was in the end of 2019 for a manic episode That was actually the only time I've been hospitalized for mania. All the other times were the depression and suicidal. But there's nothing wrong with asking for help or needing help. I would go to the hospital a million times over before I would inflict that type of pain on my loved ones.